probably already know that divorce isn't cheap, but I'll tell you what surprises people the most. It's not just the attorney's fees or the paperwork. It's the little relentless costs that sneak up on you. I had a client, I'm gonna call her Sarah, who told me, I thought I was finally done, and then I got a $600 bill for an expert report that I didn't even request. I'm Jeff Hughes, CEO and lead attorney at Sterling Lawyers. If you are in Illinois, here's what a divorce will really cost you in 2025. From the unavoidable court fees to the hidden traps that can quietly drain your savings if you're not prepared. So let's break it down, starting first with the court fees. Now, this is just the cost to get in the door. Every county in Illinois sets its own rates, but here's what you will pay just to file the action. Cook County is $388, DuPage $348, Champaign County $306, Washington County $321. If your spouse files first and serves you, you'll owe an appearance fee just to respond, typically between $180 and $250, depending on the county that you're in. And don't forget the process fee. If you're using a sheriff, that'll be between $50 and $60. And if you're using a private process server, you can expect to pay between $150 and $250. And you might need one if your spouse is dodging service. And those are just the entry fees. I once saw a guy spend over $1,000 just to get started by the time it was all said and done. And then on top of that, there's the total divorce cost of what you really pay. So here's a snapshot of what divorces usually cost in the state of Illinois. An uncontested divorce, meaning both parties agree on every single thing. That is usually between $1,500 and $5,000 total. A contested divorce means there's at least one issue that is in disagreement that needs to be resolved. The fee there is between $10,000 and $15,000. And if there are children involved, you can expect to add another $20,000 plus on top of that. And if there are complex assets that are involved, that'll run those costs up another $19,000 or so. And unfortunately, some cases, about 3 to 4% of cases actually go to a full trial. And there you can expect exorbitant fees of between $30,000 and $50,000 additional. It is not unusual for many cases to break $50,000 if the parties dig in and there is a big fight on something. Here's another example of a case that still amazes me to this day. I once saw a couple spend $14,000 fighting over a $3,000 couch. And by the end, neither one of them actually wanted it. It was all about making a point and poking the other one in the eye. This is what conflict does. It sets your money on fire. And without a question, attorney's fees are the biggest cost driver. In Illinois, divorce attorneys usually charge between $200 and $450 an hour, depending on their experience and their location of what city and county that they're in. Before anything happens, you will be asked to pay a retainer, and that for a simple case is somewhere between $2,000 and $3,500. Typically, the cases are between $3,500 to $10,000 just for that initial retainer. And if there's a high conflict or a complex case, you can expect to start between $10,000 and $25,000 for the initial retainer. And hourly attorneys, they bill against that retainer. Think of it like a credit, like you're giving the lawyer a credit. And when it's gone, you will be asked to replenish that credit. I knew someone who had a client who burned through $5,000 in 6 weeks, not because of drama, but because she was unprepared and called her lawyer constantly. Your attorney is a specialist in court, so the clearer and calmer and more organized that you are, the less time and money that you'll burn in interacting with them, at least in an hourly context. You also have other fees like a parenting class if you have children. So in Illinois, the law says that you and your spouse must take a parenting class before a divorce is finalized when there's minor children involved. Now those costs are relatively nominal. An online option is between $40 and $50 depending on the county. In-person options are a little bit more, say $70 to $95, and is usually about 4 hours long. Most often couples do these separately, and they usually have 60 to 90 days to complete them. But if you skip this step, the judge won't finalize your case, even if everything else is in order and agreed upon. Now there's also mediation. This can be a powerful cost saver in many cases. It can be a smart way to avoid court, but only if both sides are willing to cooperate with each other. The hourly rate for mediators usually run between $100 to $500 depending on the level of expertise and whether they are a lawyer or not with courtroom experience. Typically, you can see most couples spending between $3,000 and $8,000 split between the both of them to have their case mediated and resolved that way. I have seen hundreds of cases save thousands of dollars by going through mediation instead of litigation in a courtroom. So if it's possible in your case for you and your spouse to reach an agreement with some help from someone else, I encourage you to do that. If mediation does fail, however, it does in some cases, you are back to square one. So choose that mediator wisely. Now, there's another area where costs can really begin to skyrocket, and that is with the use of experts. Things can get expensive here very quickly. Some divorces require third-party expert help, especially if there are children involved or there are high-value complex assets. So for example, custody valuations cost somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, depending on the county and whether you use private or public resources. Then in the money side, there are forensic accountants. Their fees typically start at about $10,000 and go up from there. There are also property appraisals. You can expect to start around $400 to $500. And if you have any of these experts come to court, now you're also looking at expert witness fees to pay for their time to prepare and show up and testify in court. It all can really begin to snowball at some point. And finally, there are some more court fees that are involved here. So if you need a certified copy of the judgment, that's somewhere between $3 and $12. There are motion filing fees along the way. That's $40 to $75, depending on the county again. If there's more process serving that needs to happen, again, you're gonna have those costs repeat themselves. And if you go to court, you're gonna need to get a court reporter there. That's a $75-ish fee, depending again on the county and what's going on. And then you gotta pay for that transcript and subpoena costs. Those are little smaller fees, of course, but they certainly add up over time. Now, there's another option I want to share with you, and that is called a joint simplified divorce. This is a great budget option. If your situation is very simple, this may be all that you need. And there are some requirements that go along with this. There can be no kids, no pregnancies, you're married under 8 years, no real estate, the combined income is no greater than $60,000. That means that neither party makes over $30,000. The assets are under $50,000. The retirement accounts are under $10,000. There is no spousal support between the parties or maintenance or alimony, you may hear it called, and everything is agreed to in writing. If you manage to check all of those boxes, your total cost might be under $500, and you might not, and most likely don't even need an attorney in that type of situation. So in closing, let me just hit on those big things that drive costs way up in a divorce action. When there are disagreements about custody and parenting time, that is the biggest area where costs can really begin to skyrocket. Or when there are big fights over money and property. Also, there's a scenario where one party or both parties have to win at all costs. That mentality is going to make fees go way up. That often leads to numerous motions, numerous court appearances, an extended amount of time that both parties are in divorce court. Costs can also drive way up when there's emotional fights over insignificant items. And costs go up when there are unnecessary expert fees, either to go out and do the evaluation or the appraisal, and then to show back up in court and tell the judge about it. Those costs begin to layer on and become significant. And the biggest one of all, if there is a trial, that takes all of those expenses and multiplies them well more than double. And you can keep costs low by agreeing early and doing it on everything that you possibly can agree on. Use mediation if you possibly can early in the case. Don't treat your lawyer like a therapist. They're there as a legal expert, not to be contacted every single day about small trivial things, because that just dries up costs. Unless you work with someone like our office where we do everything on a fixed fee basis, then you can call us as much as you want. Also, stay organized. Don't make your lawyer chase documents. Pick your battles. Not every hill is worth fighting and dying on. And respond quickly to your lawyer and to the courts. Delay equals more time, which means more money. And most of all, understand that divorce is a legal process, not a revenge mission. And here's one part that no one talks about. Most people overpay before the divorce even starts, all because they didn't prepare the right way. So don't fall into that trap and watch this next video, because we'll talk about the exact steps that you must do before you file for a divorce in Illinois. Do this before you file, not after you file, because how you begin the process will determine how much it will cost and how long it will take.